Today's show is a cracker. We continue our conversation around what an athlete needs to be successful. It goes well beyond the training plan. And in today's discussion, Max and I break apart not just what an athlete needs to be successful, but how Purple Patch has designed our one to one coaching to serve those needs. It goes well beyond just delivering workouts and maybe giving a little bit of feedback. I think you're going to find today useful. If you're a coach, you might be able to take some of the lessons and apply to your own coaching of athletes. If you're an athlete, maybe it will broaden your perspective on how to actually build a performance recipe for yourself. Of course, it might also be a catalyst where you want to continue the conversation with Purple Patch. Maybe you want to understand how we can help you support your journey. And so, why don't you reach out to us for a complimentary needs assessment? We'd like to understand your goals, your needs, what you're looking to accomplish. You can set up a complimentary call with Max, who is my co host today. He's going to really dig deep into what you are looking for as an athlete and what you're looking to achieve. And then we can see if there's an alignment. It's absolutely no pressure. We are just there to try and support you along your journey. And so I hope that you enjoyed the show today and you find it beneficial. And if you would like to reach out, don't hesitate. Feel free to just reach out to info@purplepatchfitness.com. That's info@purplepatchfitness.com. We'll set up a call at your convenience and we'll explore if we're a right partner for each other. Alrighty, with that, enjoy the show and I hope you find it's beneficial. Take care. I'm Matt Dixon, and welcome to the Purple Patch Podcast. The mission of Purple Patch is to empower and educate every human being to reach their athletic potential. Through the lens of athletic potential, you reach your human potential. The purpose of this podcast is to help time-starved people everywhere integrate sport into life. And welcome to the Purple Patch Podcast. As ever, your host, Matt Dixon. And once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Max Gering. How you doing, Max?
I am good, Matt. Happy Monday. We're recording this on a Monday morning. Happy to be here.
Happy to be here, yeah. And goodness me, it's always tough recording with you. So I feel my age when I record with youthful you, and you bring your good looks. I did promise not to tell anyone on the show that your nickname within Purple Patch is Hollywood, so I certainly won't reveal that today. And there is good reason for it. But we are here to explore part 2 of our series around really coaching and athlete success. If you haven't listened to part 1 of this, in part 1, Max and I went through, and actually Max got to take control of the show and interview me in many ways. We sort of designed these 2 episodes around a really popular NPR podcast, How I Built This, and thought it would be really fun, but ultimately really useful to dig into a little bit of Purple Patch. So Max, we talked about what it takes for an athlete to be successful, and then we unpacked the Tri Squad program for Purple Patch. It was a lot of fun. I think really, really interesting sort of what came out of that. Today, we want to go into the next step of that. So we're going to do a little refresher. I think you want to do a little refresher on what is required for an athlete to be successful. We also want to discuss coachability. So from an athlete standpoint, how to be really coachable, and then from a coaching standpoint, how to set that up. And then I think we're going to dig into one-to-one coaching a little bit and how we view one-to-one coaching. I think I'm covering all the bases of what we want to get done on this show, yeah?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. I think the refresher will be good to start. And then ideally, people are going to walk away from this episode with a lot to think about in terms of where they are on their personal journey, if they're thinking about coaching, if they're in coaching, and really come away with things that are help them be more successful in
Yeah,
their
and
pursuit of their goals.
also I'd like to sort of shine, if you're listening as a coach, this might be really useful for you as a coach, of how to think about your own coaching and how to get the most out of your athletes. We've obviously got a lot of experience on that. So I'm hoping it would be helpful for coaches and then athletes, whether they're self-coached, whether they're already in a coaching relationship, whether they're exploring a coaching relationship, as you say, hopefully broaden the perspective of what is necessary, because you and I both know it goes well beyond the workouts, which we're going to dig into today. But I think we can get going with what we will label the meat and potatoes. And so I get to sit back a little bit today, and I guess I'm on the hot seat. So I'll put myself in your hands and and let us kick off the journey. It's over to you, I think.
All right, let's do it. The first thing I ask for you in this beginning section, Matt, is to be as quick as possible. I am going to throw out a topic, and I want you to give us your quick take, rapid fire, on what athletes need to know about this topic regarding, what they need to be successful. So we're gonna keep this short so we can keep going. How's that sound?
Well, I would do my best. I like the fact that you shine the light of pressure on me. So I would do. You know, I'm a man of many words, but I will do my best. I'll try and be succinct.
All right. So to kick things off, what athletes need to be successful, because we are talking about training, is a
Mhm.
training plan. So flexibility in training plans. What does that mean? Why is it important?
Well, life is not a spreadsheet. That's what I would say there. So I think that whether you're prescribed a training plan by a coach, whether you're following a training program, it needs to dance with life. Life is chaotic. It is the one certainty that we have is change. And so the only way that I've seen athletes be successful is if they either design or have a training program that in itself is highly flexible as well, that can ebb and flow with the demands of life. And what I mean by that is, uh, y- I consistently see any training program that has a predetermined progressive load by week on total training hours as being or total training miles as being the predominant sort of feature of success is the one that is always going to break. And so having a program that actually can integrate into life, and if life is busy, then it can be less, or less busy, then you can do more training, is always the recipe for success, I would say.
I think that's hit the nail on the head. It's really important for listeners there. It's not just about you being flexible with the way you approach training, but the training program itself needs to be flexible inherently. Um,
Yeah, and I would add to it, a plan is not coaching. A plan is just that, a spreadsheet. And so the coaching part of it and the empowerment of the athlete part of it, that's where the magic occurs. I see. It's not really about the workouts per se. It's how you apply the workouts in the context of your life.
exactly.
Mhm.
All right. Number two, clarity on what sessions matter. How does that come into play for an athlete to be successful?
For that, I would say two things. Number one, right from the start of coaching professional athletes, it was exactly the same. It's particularly important for very busy athletes, and that is that any given week, it's very, very easy for athletes to fall into viewing their training programs like chicken casserole, where every session has the same value or importance. That's not what training is. Any given week of training, I think, is most successful when you build it around two or maybe three key sessions of the week, the ones that are there that place typically the most demand and drive the performance needle. The supporting sessions, as we call them, are valuable. They're important, but they're the ones that you can scale, both in terms of duration and, of course, intensity, or both of those. So that's the adjustable component. And I think if you look at any week of training and you can't clearly identify the key sessions, and then you're starting to go down a cul-de-sac of struggle. The second part of it that I think is really important is an athlete understanding the intent. What are you trying to get out of the session? And it's not just the hard sessions. It is understanding the demanding sessions, what the goal is, and how to execute them successfully. That's great. It's also really buying into and executing the easier sessions as easy as they need to go. And one of the common mistakes we see of athletes is going too hard in easy sessions. So understanding and executing to intent is the second layer of that.
Fantastic. Yeah, that clarity is super important. Clarity is a word we'll come back to when we talk about coaching, but that was in terms of the training program. Support and accountability. How does that play into an athlete being successful?
Well, I should preface that I think I'm on a little mini victory so far, so I'm going to keep my ball rolling here because I think I've been pretty succinct. So I just want to flag that, and you're holding me to account to execute this, so I better not be too wordy. Support and accountability, that's at the heartbeat of any successful team, any successful coaching relationship. When you are looking to achieve something in something meaningful for you, there is no shortcut to success. It is a journey. And a big part of the journey is consistency. And along that journey, you are going to have challenges. You are going to have things you don't expect. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have struggles. And so for you to show up every single day and execute to the best that you can relative to the context, it's very, very difficult to do it alone. People tend to excel when they have a really strong, robust system of support and accountability, carrot, stick, etc. That can come from teammates, that can come from mentors, that can, of course, come from coaches. It's really, really important. The second thing I'd say around that is support and accountability to focus on the things that are gonna actually help you. We talk a lot about focusing on the boulders, not the sand, nail the basics. A big part of coaching, I think, is actually removing distractions and really getting prioritized the things that are important. And and coaching is holding the athlete to account to stay focused on those components. And very quickly, because I know that I'm supposed to be quick fire, the other part of it is motivation in here. Motivation is always going to ebb and flow. That's a norm. That's not you do not show up every day in anything in life highly motivated. But the through line is commitment. And so if you are committed, the support and accountability is really a useful tool to keep you on track. That's my quick fire on that one.
Fantastic. I liked how you broke it up into support and accountability in terms of the general process of what you're trying to achieve, and then the support and accountability of what you need to focus on to move the needle forward, which brings us to this next point, which is education about those fundamentals. Why is that an important part, pivotal part of the process of being successful as an athlete?
And with fundamentals, you mean the supporting elements like sleep, recovery, yeah, like the
Exactly.
what when I started coaching, the things that everybody sort of relegated to an afterthought, and right from the start of Purple Patch was in fact the most polarizing part of the methodology is putting those with equal value and importance to the in triathlete sense, swim, bike, and run. So we're talking about integrating strength, recovery, proper hydration, nutrition, prioritizing sleep, those components. Without a heavy emphasis on those, an equal emphasis of those, education on those, and then uh, even the perfect workouts will fail. That's what I would say with that. And the interesting thing, whether we're talking about nutrition, a really emerging field, hydration, sleep, integrating strength, all of these components can be really confusing, a lot of contradictory information. And so, education on those are critical from a coaching standpoint. And I see our role as being the filter. So there is a blizzard of information on every one of these. We could spend weeks and weeks and weeks going down rabbit holes. What are the things that you, as the athlete, or she, as the athlete, or he's the athlete, need to focus on for themselves to drive their performance needle? Absolutely critical. So I would say that is fundamental. And there's one more that I would add that is often forgotten, which I think is the unlock for many
Mhm.
athletes, and that's our Sunday special process. Label, ultimately organizational effectiveness. Without a weekly ritual of getting organized and planning strategically all of your life non-negotiables, your work non-negotiables, and your training, hopefully non-negotiables, it all falls to custard. So the biggest unlock is that process of every Sunday doing proper planning. That's the unlock to actually integrate all of those things. So, yep, that is the program. That's that's the truth of it. How important are those other elements outside of swim, bike, and run? They are part of the program. That's the only way I've seen athletes really be successful over the long term. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's incredible how much focusing on that as an athlete gives you control over your journey and your
Yeah.
process, which again we'll get into. Just flagging that for myself. The last thing I want to ask you about is community. So we talked about support and
Mm,
accountability
mm.
and going on a personal journey, but being a part of something that's bigger than yourself. Why is that valuable?
I'd say community is staying power. That's really what it is. It's so additive. I can't think of anything in life where people perform better individually when they just go it alone. When they surround themselves with people, particularly where it delivers a sense of shared mission, it's like-minded, and you're sharing on that journey, it's more fun, it's more rewarding, it drives individual performance collectively. And in fact, when you're a part of the community, helping others is also another catalyst to actually provide meaning and purpose towards this. And so I think that if you sign up for a race or you have particular goals or aspirations, your driving purpose is very individual in nature. That's absolutely fine. Even if you look at it through those lens, for you to get the most out of it for yourself, surround yourself with team, if you want to call it that, you will get more out of it. You will also be adding and helping others get more out of it. And that's useful. So, in many ways, actually, if you think about Purple Patch, most people, and I think it's the same for any coaching organization, most people sign up for coaching or join coaching, start a coaching relationship with through the lens and with the goal of achieving a goal, getting faster, making a breakthrough, finishing their first Ironman, whatever it is. That's the reason for coming. But the reason they stay is all of the other stuff that we talked about. It's a catalyst for people to become more organized and effective in life. They feel better and they get the reward. They feel more accomplished. They feel a part of something. So for me, like the community is a big part of why people stay, and it turns out people stay for a pretty long time when they join us. So I think it's another critical backbone of making it really successful, I'd say.
Well, that wraps up our rapid fire section, and we were successful. That was a win. So on to the next part. I think now the time has come to start to break down one-to-one coaching. And just like we did when we talked about Tri Squad and we walked through, what your vision and mission was when creating Purple Patch Tri Squad, I think it'll be really valuable to do the same to frame this, which is where did Purple Patch one-to-one coaching come from? And what was your big mission when creating the coaching program at Purple Patch?
Yeah, I think it's worth us going back, not to walk over well-trodden ground, but it's worth going back all the way to me starting Purple Patch, which was me, myself, and I. And I had really a relatively narrow perspective when I started Purple Patch. I wanted to coach champions. That was it. It was in myself in my studio apartment, and the whole methodology of Purple Patch emerged out of my struggles as an athlete myself, and really the lessons that I gained of, well, this is not how to do it, despite my background in clinical physiology and obviously in elite sport before that, and even coaching in swimming at a pretty high level. So when I started, I had this methodology and I implemented it and went on this journey in world class sport. And I when you're coaching elite athletes, where it is it is not soft. It is black and white. These athletes show up, perform, and need to stay at the razor's edge of world class performance. I learned pretty quickly what it meant to be, for lack of a better phrase, an elite coach. In other words, a coach of elite athletes. I'm not calling myself elite per se. And what I realized is, firstly, it was incumbent on me of to really understand a little bit or something, or quite a bit around a whole bunch of stuff. Whether it was equipment, whether it was aerodynamics, whether it was fueling and nutrition, strength, recovery, everything. I needed to know a little bit about a whole bunch of stuff. And then I needed to apply it for athletes. And yet, in any one of those fields, nutrition, manual work for prehab, strength and conditioning, there were experts in their fields that knew vastly more in each area. And so I would have been, I think, pretty naive to not try and utilize those experts. And very quickly, I thought, hang on, my job is to get these athletes to not just achieve world class levels, but stay there over time. So, how can I surround myself with some really, really smart people that can contribute to that journey? And then, how can I, to use an American phrase, quarterback this thing a little bit? And that really, I think maybe that was just my personality. Maybe it was even a little bit of lack of confidence. I don't know, but I really tried to bring them together. So it was people like Jerry Rodriguez of Tower 26, a great open water swim expert, Paul Buick, an amazing cycling coach, technical cycling coach. I'm more, learned more about cycling from Paul than any other person on the planet. Various bike fitters that we utilize, Stacy Sims, the man John Ball around bodywork, just an absolute maverick and legend. A host of nutritionists, most recently Scott Tyndall, really, really smart guy. And then other coaches reading and interacting with Steven Seiler and David Tilbury Davis and Steve Magnus out of running. These people that could help contribute to the athlete's success. And And that became really important. And so when I started to build this pro squad and they were surrounded by pro athletes, I went through this experience of saying, hang on, now we're going to start to expand this. I was coaching, we started to bring coaches on. And I I always looked at other coaching organizations and saw the flaw of their model. And that was that there was this name coach, and then they had under them a field of coaches distributed all over the country or world with just a logo on. And they were up there, and it was like, okay, in name only. And I thought that doesn't deliver what we want, which is long term athlete success with great service. So much like my pro athletes that I was coaching that were wholly committed, completely dedicated, and chasing world class performance, that was the standards that I wanted to set for the coaching team. So it was all in. And I thought, if we're going to do this, this is all in. I want coaches that are committed, that are going to perform to the highest level. And so I really borrowed off of the model of the pros, and I shaped what we did with the pro athletes. Does that make sense of sort of
It
the catalyst of how we started this?
it does, and I think it really does a good job of describing, and we'll get into the way we coach a pro patch today, which is based on that, but describing the feeling you have as a coach at Pro Patch, which I can speak to, which is you feel like you are a part of a team. You are a part of a team that has high standards. And it makes total sense because how could you create a team culture with our athletes if it doesn't start with a team culture and when it comes to
Yeah.
organization? So
Well, I'm glad you mentioned team as out of that because that was I think that was the biggest differentiator of our pro athletes that we coached. In the early years, I coached individual pros. It was only when we took a team approach within this individual sport that everything went to the next level. And so with the pro squad, in order to be coached by me, they had to be a member of the team. They were a part of the Purple Patch Pro Squad. And in there, we put systems in place, non-negotiable behaviors, very, very similar stuff. You know, you must fuel after workouts, you must integrate and buy into strength training, you must go easy in the easy sessions, all of these things. We had a mentorship program. We got together consistently out of their regular training environment to build trust, understanding, support, collaboration. It started to feel like a team. And I knew that we were getting success with that when they started to identify themselves as Purple Patch Pros rather than Tim Reed Pro Athlete. So we really had this sense of belonging and team. And so I would have been foolish again to not try and replicate that as a coach. And I said, we need to build a team of coaches. So I don't want just in name only. I want a team of people. And so we set up a very similar approach as we started to add coaches. We did two things. Number one, we put in what are the non-negotiable behaviors that we want every coach to adhere to. What's our consistent framework of how we go and deliver coaching? So that's our model of coaching that we talk about. Interestingly, to keep it really consistent around an athlete experience, whether you're being coached by Max or Matt or Nancy or Brad, it feels like a purple patch experience. And it really helps with, you know, if you're stepping away as you did earlier this year and you went and got married, a coach can come in and support you and have a clear understanding of where the athlete is on the journey. So we put all the systems in place. And I think that's a big reason around our one to one coaching. And I know we'll get into the details of one to one coaching, but I think that's a reason for a couple of things. Number one, why it's so challenging for someone to join Purple Patch. We don't hire very often because we don't lose coaches very often. And you're actually the freshest face on the Purple Patch coaching team, but it takes a while to hire, and coaches tend to stick around, and that's actually a huge component for that retention. That's very similar to what happened with our pro athletes. People just didn't want to leave because the coaches, and I think, and maybe you can speak to this more, it doesn't feel like an individual isolated journey. You've got a support network. You're held to account. The standards are high. And certainly for an incoming coach, that's not for everyone because you don't just get to go off and hide in the corner and coach your 10, 15, 20 athletes. You are held to account to deliver excellent service, and also you're supported. And so you probably know as much about Nancy's athletes and Brad's athletes as my athletes, as in, in some ways as your own athletes. It really is this purple patch athlete mindset across everyone. But sounds like you feel that as a member of the coaching team.
Yeah, I do. I think that, I mean, that's what makes it fantastic is being part of that team and working really hard is a given in anything you're going to do and do well. The question is, are you going to be working really hard with people around you in that, that are after the same pursuit? And that's what makes it enjoyable and sustainable.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I,
so
I would I would add as well. By the way, I mentioned Jerry Rodriguez and Paul Buick and these experts in fields. It's also really valuable from a coaching team standpoint. What that looks like in our coaching team is we all have different strengths and all of us have weaknesses as well. And so in our coaching team, we would be silly through that same lens not to leverage that. So Nancy is a fantastic resource in female physiology. She actually up levels the rest of us. She up levels you, myself, and everyone. You are a brain mechanic, as I like to say. You have the expertise around sports psychology. It's fantastic. John is obviously a real expert in open water swimming and technique. So we bring these different assets that then can be surrounded. And when someone joins as an athlete, you need video analysis from John. You have video analysis from John. You want to deep dive and get support around an athlete that you're coaching around female physiology and perimenopause. Bring Nancy into the fold. So it creates, I think, more of a 360-degree team approach to the individual athlete as well, which I think is really beneficial for ultimately what we're here for, athlete success.
yeah, it's funny as you were saying that I was thinking about the next part of this episode that we're going to get through, which is coaching and being coachable. And it's probably a whole other topic for another day, but how you can only be a good coach if you are very coachable. And this team dynamic forces us as coaches to be very coachable and to lean into team, to work together, to be open to feedback, to communicate when we need help. And so, yeah, that's a key component of us being successful as coaches within an organization. Um,
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I came in and got excited when you said that because I think what does it take to be a great teammate? What is if you think about being a great teammate? Always identify three things, which you want to bring a certain level of smarts to it. So you want to be smart, you want to be hungry. That's right, like because there is a will to win here. We want results, we
mhm.
want outcomes, and you want to be humble. Those are the 3 things, and so a big part of humility is looking outside of yourself for answers, support, accountability, all of those components. So smart we don't hire dummies. We want people that are ambitious, that are there, that wanna meet the standards, don't want the standards lower to them, and you wanna be humble enough to actually surround yourself with people that have got great core expertise in areas that maybe we're weaker in, and that's how everybody benefits, including the athletes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
fantastic.
Mm.
All right, before we ramble on too much, let's keep going.
Mhm.
So, when it comes to one-to-one coaching, and as you talk about a lot, being in a performance partnership, a key part of that partnership is the athlete. So, just kick things off with this next section. What does it mean to be coachable from an athlete's perspective?
What I mean, we could do, and I have to go back through my memory bank. I think we might have done a whole podcast on coachability, but we certainly could if we haven't done it. Because coachability, I think, is one of the traits of high performers generally. In my experience with coaching too many elite athletes to remember, the ones that are most successful, the champions, are the ones that are highly coachable. That is the one that is really consistent. And interestingly, I've worked with a lot of C-suite executives, and many of them pretty well known. And the common trait amount around the ones that are most successful is their thirst for learning and their coachability. It is absolutely a critical component to success, being coachable. But what does that actually mean? And I think the most important thing is what it doesn't mean. It does not mean that you're relinquishing control or you're removing ownership. And so if you're
Mhm.
coachable, you still own your results. You are still ultimately steering the ship. What a coach is a performance partner, as you talked about that. So it remains your journey, ultimately your responsibility. But if you are the athlete with your aspirations and goals, if we just narrow the focus to being an athlete, you are doing the doing every single day. So you are the person in the weeds. You're the ones where the goal, the purpose, the passion is very personal. It really means it shouldn't mean more to anyone else than you. You're the one that has everything. And so on a day-to-day basis, it's really, really difficult to retain perspective while also putting in the required hard work. You can't always I read something, I think it was from Steve Kerr, which is, he was obviously a great basketball player and a fantastic coach. He said, "When you're a player, no you can't see yourself play, but a coach is the person that can see yourself play to give you feedback." That's the same as an endurance athlete. You can't see yourself doing it. The coach is there as a sounding board, but also a person of great wisdom with hopefully a broad experience of lots of different athletes where they can put your performance into context and give you great feedback, guidance, advice, etc. along their journey. And so if you can't see yourself, but the coach is there for that, that is a critical component. The coach is also a really good person to set the strategy and help you filter the distractions and get you to focus on the things that are going to help you. I remember Tim Reed became a great world champion as an athlete, had great success. A big part of my role as his coach was to filter out the things that were causing distractions and get him to apply his lofty talent and commitment to the things that would drive the performance needle. And that was the catalyst. So it was as much about what I removed as it was any magic in workouts, to be honest. It was really, really important. And so with that, I think that if you're an athlete listening, it is if it's your journey and the coach is there as a sounding board, a point of perspective, helping you filter, at the heart of your relationship is what you bring: communication, not just waiting for feedback, not just being told what to do, but providing feedback, asking questions, showing up to meetings in a more tangible with an agenda, with things that you want to talk about. And that's how the great partnerships form, where two people are committed, both are bringing it, and there is feedback from the coach, but there's also feedback back to the coach. That's where the magic occurs, and that's how we really build apart that. And so I think it's a critical component. And then the final thing I'd say, I know I'm on a monologue, is people know the growth mindset, but the ever and never ending thirst for learning is so important. The most challenging athletes that we have coached are the ones that are, "Yes, but I know what I want to do." So they like the idea of getting a coach, but they don't want to evolve anything that they do as an athlete. And that's where the challenges really emerge from, I would say.
Yeah, you summed it up really, really well. Starting with commitment, and then breaking it down. That commitment really comes down to communication and questions. Questions, what stood out to me a lot, and what I think about the best athletes I've coached, they're always coming with questions. Just this morning, I had a call with an athlete, and it's, what should I focus on this week? Understanding that he's going to be on his own. It's up to him to bring it every day, um,
Mhm.
and taking ownership of that part of the journey.
And that was
That was
that
really
was one of
good.
the questions he asked, yeah? What should I focus on?
Yeah,
Right, yeah, that's it.
exactly.
Yeah, it's great.
Um, all right. So that's being coachable. That's one component of the performance partnership. It's the athlete. Now, this next part is what the coach needs to bring, and how the relationship should be set up so that the coachable athlete can be super successful. Um, so we're going to stick with the format we did before, which is I'm going to ask you a question. This time
Mm.
you have more time to answer, so I won't keep a time clock. Um, and to kick things off with this, I think it's a really good place to start with the Purple Patch methodology, because we talked about team and standards and all of that. And okay, we're going out into the world as coaches, coaching athletes based on what are we coaching, um, not just our own thoughts and goodwill. So, Purple Patch methodology.
Yeah, so if we're looking inside, and I guess just to frame it for listeners as well, as I answer these questions, it's not how everyone should do it. It's how we try and solve the challenge of really
Hmm.
making sure the athletes can be successful. I'm sure there are other ways out there, and and I know there are many other coaches being successful. So I just want to ground ourselves in that. When I just returned from Mexico City, and we were doing a leadership component, and we talked about being a great coach or a great leader in a corporate setting. And I said the first thing I talked about was having your methodology, your distinct methodology that you buy into. That's really, really important. I think that's the heartbeat of coaching. What do you actually believe in? And what are the principles that are going to guide you? That's a critical component. A purple patch, those that methodology emerged out of, as we talked about before, my own struggles. I wanted my athletes to be really, really healthy with a long-term lens, focused on self-improvement, and built a methodology to try and address those needs. And that methodology is the heartbeat of it. And so the reason that is important is that over the course of time, that methodology has always evolved a little bit because we're always looking to improve. We're always looking to reflect and say, what can we improve next year? But at the base of it, those principles fit into the umbrellas that we talk about. And it is anchored in science and peer-reviewed research, as well as, and I think this is really important, lessons from the journey where we just know it works. And it continues to evolve. It stood the test of time. It's 20 years now in duration. What it looks like now, you could argue, is almost exactly the same as what it looked like 20 years ago. Through the other side of my mouth, it has evolved and built every single year, where it's radically different and fit for purpose for this time. And I think that's a huge part of coaching. So without a methodology, without a set of beliefs, without a driving compass of how you want to take athletes of all levels, of all goals, of all abilities, etc., to their own personal up level, I think it's very, very difficult to be ultimately a great coach, and especially a great coaching organization. Just the heartbeat of everything you say.
Yeah, provides a lot of clarity, which we spoke about earlier, as a coach,
Hmm.
because there's a way of doing things. There's a rationale, there's a proven methodology, and there's just like there's a blizzard of information for athletes out there, there's a blizzard of information for coaches. And it gives you clarity on what you should be focusing on as you're helping people succeed. And so you're not looking left and right all the time when things are popping up. As you say, this is the what cycle of lactate testing or zone two being important on as a coach.
Yeah, it's about that. I think I'm in my third cycle of blood lactate testing being really, really trendy, and there's some value to it as well in the right context. What I will say with all of this, Zone 2, it's the brand new thing that's been around for a generation. The the question that we always ask is something very, very simple. Will this make athletes go faster? That's ultimately it. Will it make them go faster? Obviously being legal, obviously being healthy. And so that's what, so you add things into the mix if it's appropriate for the athlete and will yield results. That creates a real uh, confidence and filter of, hang on, we're not just going to move with the tide here. We're not going to get distracted. This is what our fundamentals are, and then we can infuse as a team these things if it's really beneficial. And so I think that's a really important thing for coaches to really understand. I think it's at the backbone of success ultimately.
Yeah. And then so if we take that another step, which is we have this methodology, applying that methodology. You mentioned before the coaching model, um, the Pearl Patch coaching model.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the importance of having a unified coaching model. Again, the way we do it, and also if you're another coach listening, the importance of having your own model that you coach based off of.
Yeah, so there's always some confusion around, hang on, is the model the methodology? Is the methodology the model? So the methodology is, if I am coaching you, Max, where are we going to apply our focus? What type of sessions are you going to do? How are you going to lay out the week? What are you going to think about nutrition, integrating strength, etc.? So it's sort of the actual principles of your coaching and how you derive it. And obviously, it's tailored to every individual, but at the heartbeat, it's unmistakably purple patch. We always talk about every single athlete's plan is unmistakably theirs, but also unmistakably a purple patch approach. And that's the sort of the methodology. The model is, how do we apply that methodology where we can scale it across all of the athletes, all of the coaches that are applying it in a systematic way to create consistency. And what we're trying to remove here is many of the things that undo coaching relationships. So why do athletes really struggle in coaching relationships? Well, there's a few things. Number one, the athlete not having alignment and buy-in with what does success look like. So it's very, very important that you have every single coach with all of their athletes that they're coaching really aligned, shoulder to shoulder, to say, this is the vision, this is what success looked like. Out of that vision and purpose, this is how we're establishing the goals and the action we're going to take. So, with that, it creates clarity, it creates alignment, and it's a bond. It's the start of a partnership. The second challenge that we try and remove by consistently applying through a framework is a lack of clarity of, well, what am I supposed to focus on as an athlete? One of the biggest challenges we see is athletes focusing on too many things and therefore not doing anything very, very well, or confusion over, well, where am I at on the journey? What am I supposed to be applying here? Shouldn't we be adding this, this, and this? So there's a process in place where coach and athlete can do some contracting to say very, very clearly, in order to achieve these goals, this is what we're going to focus on. And perhaps just as important, what we're not going to focus on. And that becomes really, really helpful for clarity, removing confusion, making sure there's no distraction. And it's almost a contracting. Then a big part of it is to help the athlete go on the journey and provide feedback, support, and accountability that we talked about to those actions. So that's how you feel like you're in lockstep with each other. And then, of course, as a part of that, something that is just a reality of going on any journey, whether you're building a business, whether you're trying to train for an Ironman or a marathon or anything else, there's always things you haven't thought about, and there is always change. You are going to come above things that derail you, take you off track, suddenly become an obstacle, or some external force that changes things. So, how as a coach can you bring you back on track? Well, it's all part of that alignment and vision. That's a part of it. And then finally, helping an athlete stay on track and understand their progress and how they need to adapt to keep back with that vision. So, having a framework is incredibly important. And the interesting power of this is when you have a really formalized framework, it's actually liberating because it helps facilitate better communication. It creates better alignment with coach and athlete. And with a stricter framework, ironically, it provides all of the coaches with greater autonomy to bring their best and own personality. So what I don't want is everybody coaching like robots. What I want is everybody to bring their strengths, everyone to be able to have their own personality, everyone to have their own styles, every coach athlete relationship to have a communication system that works for that coach and athlete, not just systematically, but operating in a framework where it creates really easy transitions. We can support other coaches. The athlete understands where they're at on the journey. So, what that looks like in person, in really tangibly, is we love moments in the purple patch journey. And so, once a quarter, typically, we have these moments of reflection where all of the coaches are looking back over the quarter and saying, what did we do well? Where can we improve? Like, what do we not do as well? What should we do now? And that's a systematic thing. But in there, there's a whole bunch of flexibility of how you apply that and what the athlete needs and what they're chasing, etc. So I think it's a really, really important part that creates a whole bunch of freedom and ultimately makes things easier. And that's what we're looking to do, is to remove friction, make things easier, and create that word that you mentioned earlier that I think is a really good one, a performance partnership word, phrase, whatever you want to call it.
Fantastic. It's it really is the crux of it, the crux of the coaching relationship. I like how you said it creates more freedom. It does give you more capacity to focus on the things that really, really matter, um, and spend less time dealing with the little things, the logistics. Again, it makes coaching a lot more effective.
I
Um,
I would just add one thing to it as well from, for listeners that are maybe interested in this part, from myself as the head coach or the leader of the coaching team as well. It creates the framework is the thing that enables us to set really high standards. It's like, this is how we do stuff. So you asked me about support and accountability earlier. If it's really, really clear of how we deliver coaching, when I'm having the one-to-one conversations with you, Max, bi-weekly, and we look at your roster and we look at how you're doing, and we investigate where each of the athletes are on their journey and how I can support you, it makes it much, much easier as we're going along in this step-by-step process of like, have you done this? No. Where do you need support here? So it creates an ecosystem of high standards, high support, where I can help fuel hopefully your coaching, which I think is really beneficial for everyone.
yeah, it's a really good example of what it looks like for us as a coaching team.
Mhm.
Um, I like that. Um, it's super super important. Just I guess one more thing to say about it is I think that, again, as you said, it allows the coach to bring their own personality. Can speak from it personally. Is it again? It just provides. It's not that every athlete is coached the same way, but there's key things that we're touching on with all athletes, making sure that we're reflecting, making sure that athletes have clarity, and so it it's a kind of a plug and play model as a coach. I guess that's one way I think about it as a coach. Um, but moving on, some things that are pretty a given in the world of coaching, but I think they're important to talk about anyway. Starting with having a truly customized plan, a tailored plan, something that's flexible, as we mentioned in the beginning. Just quick hits on that, as we could say, even though it is a given.
Yeah, what it should be a given. Interestingly, when and you're the person that's having a lot of conversations when you're doing, for lack of a better phrase, a needs assessment with an incoming athlete, where you want to understand their goals, where they're at, etc. And and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the most common things that you hear from athletes with their frustrations of their prior coaching relationship is the lack of integration of their training plan into life. And so I'll give you an example. They might be traveling to New York and being asked to go for a 2-hour bike ride. That doesn't that's stunning to me. That's such a basic. It's a little bit like brushing your teeth in the morning. If you are a coach, you are delivering a program, particularly if you're working with someone one to one, that should be absolutely integrated into life. Number one, it should be highly flexible. And once you write the training program, you should fully expect that that training program is a living document that might need to be evolved, depending on how the athlete executes in training and their fatigue level, changing life commitments. Maybe they have to travel suddenly to New York, and you need to adapt the program. So, sort of unlimited program changes and making sure that program adapts in real time, that's a part of it. And it should integrate and follow that athlete's personal calendar, their work calendar, and it should evolve. And I think that's obviously the one of the big differences between Tri Squad, a little bit more autonomous and self-managed on that standpoint, and the one-to-one coaching is every single workout should fit how much time you have in that day, where you're at in the world, etc. And it should all feed into the best decision to keep long-term progression and making sure that you're a part of a journey. That's it. The second part of it, I think, that's really important around the tailored program is really simple language, not requiring people to have science degrees and understand about mitochondrial density in order for them to execute. Simple is better. In fact, simple is genius, and I think that's a critical component. And it does, and maybe you're going to ask me about this, but it ties in as well to the communication piece. Yeah, communication. How can you have a one-to-one coaching relationship where you're limiting communication? In order for it to be successful, you need communication, and I don't really mind how it happens. It can happen through our training app, Training Peaks, really consistently. That's one part of it. It can happen on text and email. You need to have human interaction sort of whether it's voice calls, whether it's video calls, whether it's in person, all of that comes together with a recipe. But communication for me needs to be unlimited. If an athlete has life events that change, they need to be able to reach out, and that program needs to adapt. So that's why at the heart of it, we have never, will never limit communication. You know, if an athlete ever in our quarterly surveys that we do, that I lead and follow up with athletes, if an athlete ever reports, I feel under supported, that is a dagger to our heart, and I think that would be a dagger to your heart as a coach of Purple Patch. Yeah, I mean that's perhaps one of the worst pieces of feedback we can get. Luckily, we don't get it too often, but
Yeah.
goodness me.
Yeah, not something we wanna hear. Support in your style, as I like to say when I start with new athletes. It's let's figure out the style that best works for you in your life. All of this, the reason why we have the plans, the communication, the quote unquote contract in the beginning, at the end of the day, is yes, to accomplish goals and also to do something a lot bigger, which is to go on a personal journey.
Mhm.
And I think, as you mentioned before, which is the staying power. You know, people come because they have a goal. They want to accomplish something in sport, and it's something that's super important to them. But then it transcends to something bigger than that, and that often that's why they stay. So I think it'd be good to talk a little bit about broader education and going on a journey with athletes.
Yeah, it's
What
great.
does that look like?
It's a great point to bring up. I think it's actually undervalued by many coaches and even athletes. So I think the first thing here as a coach, our job is not done once you hit send on the plan. All right, there it is. Off you go. See you later. I'll speak to you in the week. It's that's simply the training plan. That's the really simple part. And unless the athlete really understands the meaning behind that plan, how to execute as intent, and then it's never going to be executed as you intended and how you've written it. That's number one. So when you think about coaching conversations, it goes well beyond how you feeling? How's your swim? How's your bike? How's your run? You have to talk about that a little bit. But do your coaching conversations genuinely address what we would call the pillars of performance? Are you actually thinking in a broad enough perspective? That's really important. And that can transcend, it transcends beyond recovery and organizational effectiveness. It does bleed into broader life. And I think that when you start to develop a really positive coaching relationship, that's where things get really sticky. So let's let's dig into that a little bit. An athlete joins, and we're using Purple Patch as the case study. An athlete comes to us typically because they want to take it to the next level. They want to get faster. They want to finish for the first time. They want to qualify to Kona, whatever it might be. So it is a results business in which they come to us to achieve goals to get faster. That's why, at the heart of it, when you strip it all away, that's why they come. Great. And that's not why they stay. Because what emerges over time is that by taking on this challenge, by solving the integration challenge of not having it be like a monkey on the back, where it feels like it's a net negative to the life, but you want to achieve that very important goal, and actually unlocking your performance recipe, what starts to emerge is this is something more profound. Ultimately, is the only way to do it because they feel healthier, they have better energy, they gain perspective, they become better at navigating challenges. They draw the lessons from that, and it helps them show up in broader life. So there's all of this stuff, and as a coach, I think that's a very, very important part that we need to take really seriously. And even as a part of that, if you have someone that signs up and joins, and you are coaching, and they are wholly focused on the finish line, the time, the qualification, the pass fail element of it. It is a part of our role to try and steer and say that's really critical in your journey. But this is the other stuff that's also important because that's the stuff that really really galvanizes the value of why people do this sport. And when you take people on a journey and they have that, wow, that's important. And that's a really critical component. I can even tell a personal story here because when I came to the US, I had the most narrow field of focus I could possibly have. Came as a swimmer. I'd finaled in the Olympic trials in swimming. I came over here in 1992. My whole goal, my whole mission was, yeah, I'm going to university, but I want to make the Olympic team. That's it. And I committed for 4 years. I went to the Olympic trials in 96 and I didn't make the Olympic team. So objectively, I failed. But what actually came over that is I went on this incredible journey. Yeah, I got a degree out of it. This incredible journey that really helped drive me as a human being. And not only did I gain a whole bunch of friendships with a whole bunch of really crazy other swimmers that still to this day I keep in touch with and keep me sane and grounded and and I don't even want to say anything more about those guys. But it gave me every reward that I possibly couldn't imagine at the start of it. That yeah, I didn't get the Olympic rings out of it, but ultimately it didn't really matter. And you don't need to be an elite athlete. You don't need to be chasing Olympic games to yield exactly the same thing out of the sport. And so the broader education and the bigger perspective, I think, is the most powerful part of coaching. You know, that's not how you, for lack of a better phrase, sell it, but that's the reward. And that's why so many purple patch athletes stick around for such a long period of time.
Yeah, I love that. What comes to mind for me is something that we talk a lot about is we are passionate about helping people get better and tap into their potential. We want to make athletes faster and we do make athletes faster, but we don't care who the fastest athlete is. We want people to win within the context of their life.
Yeah.
And when you nail this in a coaching relationship, that coaching relationship and partnership for athletes become essentially like a lab in their life where they get to practice being coachable, having a growth mindset, and then work on all these things, being someone that has perspective. And then that's when they're able to, convert it to other components of their life, other arenas in their life. And that's really where the magic happens. Um,
Yeah, and in fact, that aligns with many of the C-level executives that I'm working with that are essentially incredibly successful in life and at work. But I've had coaching relationships that last 7, 8, 10, 14 years. I've been coaching a C-level executive. And it's just this continual low risk lab to continue to take on challenges, to keep honing communication and leadership skills, etc. That's the value. And they keep getting faster, even though they're getting in advanced stages. That's great, but that's just the cherry ultimately, is the truth of it.
yeah, fantastic. Well, this has been really beneficial. I personally have loved this conversation. It's gotten me inspired to go about my day and keep coaching. To wrap it up, I would love for you to give us some quick thoughts on summarizing who we are at Purple Patch, what what we're optimizing for as a coaching team to really bring some closure to this conversation.
Yeah, it's well, you address the one that I always highlight actually. And it is my biggest point of pride and satisfaction, and that's that we don't care who the fastest is, and that creates a culture. Like, if I take a step back, we have a culture of excellence. We set very high standards for ourselves. We make athletes faster. That is it. At the same time, we are not there is no ego here. Like, the common thread that ties everyone together is a desire to improve, and I think that creates a really safe, fun environment. That's number 1. Number 2 is that word, fun. I don't need a reminder from you this week, Max, that three-letter word, but I think it's important. Like, people don't when you're taking on this, ultimately what this is a hobby. It's something that's very, very important that can create some real value and return of investment in health, in how you perform, in how you show up, pride, satisfaction. But it's a big part of your life that should not feel like a second job. It should be fun. Fun from how we build the programming, how we coach the programming. I mean, anyone that's in my live and recorded sessions on the video coaching that we infuse into the program, it is fun. I'm deadly serious about it, but I want to have a good time, and it's important. Fun from a stress removal standpoint. Like, we work hard, but we laugh hard too. And it turns out as well, by the way, winning is really fun. And we like that. We love to celebrate victories. I'm still really proud of all of the success our pro athletes had. That's really fun. It's a virtuous circle. And then the final thing I will say that I think is maybe who we are, to your question.
Mhm.
We're winners. The Whenever we talk about fun and talk about that, I think we have to also say it's fun, it's enjoyable, but it's not just cheerleading. We are results driven. And I think that is really fun as well. We take that deadly serious. When we have athletes that join us, they expect and deserve really good results. They expect ROI from the effort that they put in. We'll steer you, we'll guide you. They have the ownership. But if an athlete commits and leans in, follows the program, is really coachable, as we talk about, I would label the success rate of that more than 98%, 98%. I think it's almost inevitable. We talk about performance inevitability. I'll say that again. Who we are, I think it's almost if you show up and are coachable and follow the program and really communicate and buy into it, it's more than 98% that you're going to achieve your goals. And I don't think that's a light thing to say. That's who we are. And therefore it's not for everyone, because you got to buy in, you got to follow the program, you got to really commit, and you got to have a little bit of a smile on the face and be committed to having fun while you're excelling. That's who we are. It's been a great conversation.
It has been. It's a
Good
great way to
stuff.
wrap it up.
I still, by the way, I'm declaring victory. I was succinct in that first section. I built a little victory. I've got my own confidence. So thank you for keeping me on course and on track, my friend.
Thank you for bringing me back as part of the podcast. It's always a good time.
Fantastic. Max, thank you for being here today. And I'm going to say something. I don't give out compliments lightly, as you know, but we talked about the coaching team, and we talked about how tough it is, challenging it is. We don't hire quickly at Purple Patch. We brought you on, and it is it has been nothing but a positive for the team. You have taken our levels that we feel are lofty, and you have up leveled us. And so, thank you for bringing everything that you bring to the team. It's been a joy to get to know you over the last year plus, and it's fantastic that you've just brought so much to the team, and your athletes are lucky to be coached by you. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Good man. And anyone that's listening that is a coach that is interested in joining Purple Patch, we're not always hiring, but we're always looking to connect, discuss, talk, and explore. So if you are interested, it's not for everyone. We have high expectations, high standards. You better love being a part of a team. And feel free to reach out to that same address, info@purplepatchfitness.com. If you're interested, send us your resume, your background, your inspiration, why you love to coach, and we'll have a conversation. And then finally, as I started the show today, Max, if anyone listening would like to explore one-to-one coaching or Tri Squad, if they listen to part one, they can reach out to that address, info@purplepatchfitness.com. We'll set up a complimentary consultation, I believe, with you, where you can understand their goals, what they're looking to achieve, and at least explore if it's a match. And if not, well, they're going to get a lot out of the conversation, because I'm sure that you'll give them some coaching advice along their journey regardless, and we'll take it from there. So, all right. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed how I built this, how I built Purple Patch. We're still on the journey, but Max, thanks for your time. And listeners, have a great week. Stay healthy. Best of luck, and keep working hard. Take care. Guys, thanks so much for joining, and thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the new format. You can never miss an episode by simply subscribing. Head to the Purple Patch channel of YouTube, and you will find it there, and you could subscribe. Of course, I'd like to ask you, if you will subscribe, also share it with your friends, and it's really helpful if you leave a nice positive review in the comments. Now, any questions that you have, let me know. Feel free to add a comment, and I will try my best to respond and support you on your performance journey. And in fact, as we commence this video podcast experience, if you have any feedback at all, as mentioned earlier in the show, we would love your help in helping us to improve. Simply email us at info@purplepatchfitness.com or leave it in the comments of the show at the Purple Patch page, and we will get you dialed in. We'd love constructive feedback. We are in a growth mindset, as we like to call it. And so feel free to share with your friends. But as I said, let's build this together. Let's make it something special. It's really fun. We're really trying hard to make it a special experience, and we want to welcome you into the Purple Patch community. With that, I hope you have a great week. Stay healthy, have fun, keep smiling, doing whatever you do. Take care.